All right, hell yeah. So tonight's a cool night because we're doing a lot of brainstorming, and I just thought of, like, you know what I mean? Because I was sitting all the way out here and it was just tipping over, and it'd be difficult to get your body weight past that point, and we have another 4 inches sticking out here. All of that is kind of a little bit wonky. And then it was kind of interesting where I totally forgot this is 30 inches. Now, the actual cockpit in my R1 boat, because the tubes come in. And so there's only about 20 inches across. So this surface is still too much for my feet, So I have the ability to build this out basically 4 inches on either side, turning basically 30 inches into about 22. So 22 across, and then, maybe 24, which would allow for 3 inches on both sides. But yeah, there's a huge, yeah, this is so wide across that I totally forgot about that. That my seated position is actually going to be 3 inches in, 3 to 4 inches in on both sides. And that's where this was a pivot point, you know what I mean? Kind of neutral. And that's just where the outside tube is. But we all know that we kind of have one cheek on the outside tube. So that's going to be within that 4 inch window. And then another cheek on the inside. And so, yeah, so that is making a lot more sense to me. And then for the other part of this video that I want to turn on is I definitely want a, what do you call it? So a full slice kayak, you know what I mean? Or a half slice. Half slice is what? When you have just half of the boat sliced and then the other parts, business up front, ready for whitewater. So a river running, yeah, basically a river running kayak, river run and stern squirt. And so that's what we're going to do. We're going to do a half slice. And then so from this, we really want that taper to be at a kind of a steeper angle. So from here, we're going to increase the angle, or maybe that's good enough, but we're going to take that angle out like this, but just longer, but then blunt it, so we have long enough to where when we lean back onto that edge, we're going to have that as our pivot point, that is our stair step onto the half slice, and then low volume and blunt. And so you could still use it to surf, but you can still move it through the wave. That was very important to me. And so, hell yeah. And that is where the second we design our cockpit, if I want to sit here and I want to sit all the way across, then what does this back end look like? And that's where I can have a vacancy. I can have a seated platform and then like a shark's tooth where your half slice comes up and then that is a low volume, but then it's going to run into the cockpit. And so I could either just have it run into the cockpit where water slides off both ways, yeah. So anyway, I guess it really doesn't matter. Since it's the back of the boat, it really doesn't matter, what that looks like for tagging waves in the back. It just but the other thing is that if we do go vertical, you can use that volume around, and that was where the 3 points of contact. If you actually were able to go vertical onto the stern, then you could have buoyancy here and here that can engage to keep the boat also from going too vertical. Oh yeah, and I kind of forgot that was yeah. And that's where we're kind of testing two things, is because the bow also can do that same thing. You could have a slicey bow that kind of dips in, and then those are your extra sponsons. But in the back, we're going to try to keep this round shape just for that testing. Asymmetric design, so we can kind of test two things at once. And so hell yeah. So I don't know about the buoyancy and going vertical, but I do want this to be a half slice, and that's going to, just start to taper. And hell yeah. And we'll see how long a typical half slice is on a kayak, what that measured length is. And, because right here would be right behind the back band. So on a kayak, right there is right behind the back band, and then whatever length of the kayak is. We're obviously going to make it shorter just because we're going to have so much weight, and I don't know, I think and it's going to be larger volume than a kayak. And so with that, to get that. Yeah. So it's going to be wider, but hopefully low enough volume, still higher volume than a typical half slice, but with that leverage and that stair step, getting that submerged, and then hopefully it's not too vertical. Okay, hell yeah. And yeah, yeah, that's pretty sweet. Okay, that's it. Thanks for joining me. Booyah.